Good morning, students. We are going through the lesson India before the times of Shivaji Maharaj. Already we have seen part first, in which we have seen the various dynasties ruling in India before the times of Shivaji Maharaj. Among them, the Pal, Gahadwal, Chauhan, Chola, Yadava, Rashtrakuta. These were the various dynasties ruling in India. The Yadava dynasty, which was ruling in Maharashtra, that is very much important because during that time only that period was known as the golden period of Marathi language and literature. And in this period only the Mahanubhav Panth and the Warkari movement emerged. And that's why it was very important period. Today we will see the invasions from the northwest. Local dynasties like Yadava and Rashtrakuta ruled India and especially Maharashtra. And that time the rule was, as we mentioned, that the Rashtrakuta and the Yadava, that was rule was the golden period for Marathi language literature, and they were ruling very nicely. People were very happy. But that time only the invaders or the people or the rulers from outside India, they started attacking our country. They started invading our country. Invaders from the northwest conquered the local dynasties there and established their own rule. They started attacking the local kings and established their own rule. They started ruling here in India. Actually, they were from outside, but they defeated the local rulers, they defeated the local kings and started ruling in India. The Arab power also emerged in the Middle East. That time only the Arab power, the Arab rulers, they also emerged in the Middle East. The Arab general Muhammad bin Qasim attacked the Sindh province in the 8th century. Underline Muhammad bin Qasim, the Arab general of the army, he attacked the Sindh province in 8th century. The Arab general Muhammad bin Qasim attacked the Sindh province in the 8th century, and that time in the Sindh province King Dahir was ruling. Underline King Dahir. King Dahir was ruling in Sindh province. But this Muhammad bin Qasim, he was having powerful and a big army, and with the help of that army he defeated King Dahir and started ruling in the Sindh province. Now remember, Muhammad bin Qasim attacked the Sindh province. The local king that time was King Dahir. Muhammad bin Qasim defeated King Dahir and started ruling in the Sindh province. And this was the first political contact of the Arabs with India. If the question is asked which was the first political contact of the Arabs with India, that is the invasion of Muhammad bin Qasim. He defeated King Dahir and conquered the Sindh province. That was the first political contact of the Arabs with India. When this Arab came and started ruling here, that news had spread everywhere, and the other rulers from various countries of the Middle East, they started at thinking over how to go to India, because as it is said that India was a very prosperous country that time. So they started thinking of coming to India. After that, Turks, Afghans, and Mughals from Central Asia came to India and established their power. And slowly, the other rulers also, like Turks from Turkestan, Afghans from Afghanistan, and Mughal from the Central Asia, they came to India and established their power here. And what was the reason why they were able to establish their power here? Because the Indians were divided in small dynasties, and they were not having good relationship with each other, and with the help because of that only they started ruling here. Indians were not united. In the 11th century CE, the Turks began to invade India, expanding their territories. The Turks also started ruling India. They attacked India in the 11th century CE and started expanding their rule here. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni invaded India many times. Underline Mahmud of Ghazni. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni invaded India many times. His only aim was to attack India, get lot of wealth, and return to his own country. Because India was one of the prosperous countries, very rich, and that's why he was attracted towards India. Many times he attacked India and took a lot of wealth. He plundered the rich temples of Mathura, Vrindavan, Kanauj, and Somnath and carried away enormous wealth. And whenever he was attacking, he used to attack the temples in India, because temples were very rich. Even if you find that most of the religious places, those are prosperous, wealthy. So even in the olden time, most of the temples, they were very rich. So these foreign rulers, they used to attack the temples and take lot of wealth, lot of gold from the temple. So which were the temples plundered or looted by Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni? Mathura, Vrindavan, Kanauj, and Somnath. These temples were plundered. Plunder means looted, attacked, and took lot of wealth from this temple. Sultanate in the north. In 1175 CE and 1178 CE, Muhammad Ghori of Ghur of Afghanistan invaded India. Underline Muhammad Ghori. Muhammad Ghori of Ghur from Afghanistan invaded India. Muhammad Ghori of Ghur means Ghur was the kingdom there, and Muhammad Ghori was the ruler. And this Ghur kingdom, it was in Afghanistan, and he also attacked India many times. The only aim of these people was to get lot of wealth from India. They were knowing that India is a prosperous country, and if they attack India, they will get lot of wealth. And after attacking, he took lot of wealth from India, but he appointed his one of his person named Kutubuddin Aibak to look after the governance of the conquered territory. Muhammad Ghuri, after attacking India, he returned Afghanistan again. But he had conquered certain territory in India. So to look after the administration of that territory, he appointed one person, and the name of the person was Kutubuddin Aibak. He appointed Kutubuddin Aibak to look after the administration of the conquered territory. So Kutubuddin Aibak started looking after the administration in the absence of Muhammad Ghuri. Muhammad Ghuri had already left. So he went away and he had appointed this Kutubuddin Aibak to look after the administration, and Kutubuddin Aibak was looking the administration. This Muhammad Ghuri, he died in the year 1206. Muhammad Ghuri died in the year 1206 CE. After his death, this Kutubuddin Aibak, who was looking after the administration on behalf of Muhammad Ghuri, he started ruling independently. He proclaimed himself as the king because he was the whole and soul in this area. So he proclaimed himself as a king and he started ruling independently on the region which Muhammad Ghuri had captured. After the death of Muhammad Ghuri in 1206 CE, Aibak began to rule the Indian territory under his rule independently. Understood the situation? Muhammad Ghuri from Afghanistan, he invaded India, he took lot of wealth, but while returning he appointed Kutubuddin Aibak as an administrator, as a governor to look after the conquered territory. Muhammad Ghuri died in the year 1206, and this Kutubuddin Aibak, he proclaimed himself as the king of this region and started ruling independently. This Muhammad Kutubuddin Aibak died in the year 1210. Remember these years. Kutubuddin Aibak died in the year 1210. After that, Ibrahim Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi was the last Sultan of the Delhi region of the north. Ibrahim Lodi was the last Sultan. We have to remember this name very well. Ibrahim Lodi was the last Sultan of Delhi. But this Ibrahim Lodi was having different type of nature. He was different type of person, and because of his nature he had made many more enemies. Might be not believing, trusting anyone, not having good relationship with the other kings. All these problems he had, and that's why he had created lot of enemies. He was having so many enemies. One of the enemy which he had made, that was Daulat Khan Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi was the governor of Punjab. He was one of the enemy. And they were not having good relationship with each other. Might be Ibrahim Lodi was always attacking Daulat Khan Lodi, and that's why Daulat Khan Lodi was also a little bit frightened. So he decided to call Babur, who was the ruler of Kabul. He decided to call Babur was the ruler of Kabul to fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Understood the situation? Ibrahim Lodi was not having good relationship with other kings, and one of his enemy was Daulat Khan Lodi. Always they used to fight, but Daulat Khan Lodi was not able to defeat Ibrahim Lodi in the battle because Ibrahim Lodi was having a very huge army. So he decided to call Babur to fight against Ibrahim Lodi, to teach a lesson to Ibrahim Lodi. And in this way, after getting the invitation from Daulat Khan Lodi, Babur came with a huge army to India and he fought a battle against Ibrahim Lodi. And in this battle, Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi. Now, Daulat Khan Lodi was thinking that after defeating him, he will become. But once Ibrahim Lodi was defeated, Babur, he himself started ruling in the north. There was a battle in between Ibrahim Lodi and Babur at Panipat. This was known as the first battle of Panipat. And in this battle, Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi. And in this way, the Sultanate of Delhi that came to an end after the defeat of Ibrahim Lodi. So in this Sultanate or in the north, you have to remember Muhammad Ghori of Ghur. He attacked India, he captured certain territories, and he appointed Qutbuddin Aibak as the governor to look after the administration. Second thing, after the death of Muhammad Ghori, Qutbuddin Aibak, he proclaimed himself as the king of the north, of the region which he was looking after. He died in the year 1210 CE. Ibrahim Lodi was the last Sultan of Delhi. He was having different type of nature and that's why he had made many enemies. One of the enemy was Daulat Khan Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi and Ibrahim Lodi always used to fight against each other. So Daulat Khan Lodi wanted to defeat Ibrahim Lodi, so he called Babur, who was the ruler of Afghanistan. He came with a big army and defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the battle of Panipat. This was the end of Sultanate of Delhi and Babur started ruling. The kingdom of Vijayanagar. During the reign of Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq of Delhi, there were many revolts in the south against the central power of Delhi. When Muhammad bin Tughlaq was ruling in Delhi, that time he was also a certain different type of person, different character. So he had created lot of enemies. People were not happy. Most of the Sardars themselves were not happy with the rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. And that's why in the north, some of the Sardars revolted against in various parts of the country. And some Sardars in the south, they revolted against Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Among these Sardars, those who revolted against Muhammad bin Tughlaq in the south, they were Sardars from the Vijayanagar kingdom and the Bahamani kingdom. Underline Vijayanagar and Bahamani kingdom. From these revolts arose the formidable Vijayanagar and Bahamani kingdom. The Sardars, they revolted against the central power, the rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and two formidable powers were established in the south. One was Vijayanagar and the second one was Bahamani kingdom. There were two brothers named Hariyar and Bukka. And they were very powerful. The brothers Hariyar and Bukka from South India were the Sardars in the service of Delhi Sultanate. Taking advantage of the instability in South during the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, they founded the kingdom of Vijayanagar in the south in 1336 CE. There was instability in the south, so these two brothers Hariyar and Bukka, they took advantage of that and they established their own rule in the south, and that rule is known as Vijayanagar kingdom. This Vijayanagar kingdom was established in the year 1336, and the first king of Vijayanagar was Hariyar. Hariyar was the first king of Vijayanagar, and when they were ruling, they made Hampi, the place named Hampi, which is presently in Karnataka, as their capital city. Hampi was the capital city from where they were looking after the administration of their kingdom. So Hampi was the capital city of Vijayanagar kingdom. After the death of Hariyar, Bukka became the Vijayanagar king. So once Hariyar died, after that his brother Bukka, he became the king of Vijayanagar. So the few things what you have to remember, that is, when Muhammad bin Tughlaq was ruling, he had created lot of enemies. There was no peace in the kingdom. There was instability in the kingdom. So some of the Sardars, they took advantage of that. And in south, two formidable kingdoms were established. One was Vijayanagar kingdom and the second one was Bahamani. The two brothers Hariyar and Bukka, they established the Vijayanagar kingdom. Hariyar was the first king of Vijayanagar. After his death, his brother Bukka became the king, and Hampi was their capital. Now we have to see one of the very powerful king of Vijayanagar kingdom. Hariyar established, Bukka followed him, and after that there were many more kings of Vijayanagar. But among them, Krishnadev Raya was very powerful king. We have to see about him. Krishnadev Raya became the king of Vijayanagar in 1509 C. In 1509 CE, he conquered Vijayawada and Rajmahendri. He started extending the boundaries of his kingdom. When Krishnadev Raya became the king of Vijayanagar, he started extending the boundaries of his kingdom, and that's why he captured Vijayawada and Rajmahendri. So he was very powerful. How can we say that he was very powerful? By looking at this instant, he defeated the combined forces of the sultans who had united under the leadership of Bahamani Sultan Muhammad Shah. So we know that most of the enemies of Vijayanagar, they had come together to fight against Krishnadev Raya. But Krishnadev Raya with his powerful army defeated all the enemies. They were all together and Krishnadev Raya was alone but still he defeated this united power. And all these kings had come together under the leadership of Mahmud Shah. During his time, the kingdom extended from Cuttack in the east up to Goa in the west, and from Raichudok in the north up to the Indian Ocean in the south. We can imagine that the kingdom of Vijayanagar had spread far and wide during the rule of Krishnadev Raya, because he was very good, very powerful king, and with the help of his army, he had extended the boundaries of his kingdom far and wide. Krishnadev Raya was very good in fighting. He was a very brave king. With that, he was also a scholar. He liked learning. He was a very intelligent person, and because of only he might have conquered lot of territories. He was very intelligent. He wrote Amukta Malyada, a Telugu comedian on polity. Underline Amukta Malyada. He had written a book on politics, and the name of the book was Amukta Malyada. Politics. The Hazaram temple and Vitthal temple were built in Vijayanagar during the rule. Underline Hazaram temple. The two temples which were built during the time of Krishnadev Raya, those were Hazaram temple and Vitthal temple. So we come to know about the greatness of Krishnadev Raya through this. He started extending the boundaries of his kingdom. He defeated the Bahmani Sultan Muhammad Shah, who had come together with all his friends to fight against Krishnadev Raya. Krishnadev Raya was a very brave king, as well as he was a scholar, and he had written a book named Amukta Malyada. The two temples which were built by Krishnadev Raya, those were Hazaram temple and Vitthal temple. End of Vijayanagar kingdom. The decline of the Vijayanagar kingdom started with the death of Krishnadev Raya. Krishnadev Raya was very powerful, but after his death, the decline of the Vijayanagar kingdom started slowly, because the rulers who came on the throne after Krishnadev Raya, they were not very powerful. They were not able to fight against the enemies. So in 1565 CE at Talikot, there was a battle between Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi, Barid Shahi on one side and Vijayanagar on the other side. See, during the time of Krishnadev Raya also, all these kings had come together, but they were not able to defeat Krishnadev Raya. But after the death of Krishnadev Raya, again all these people, they came together to fight against Vijayanagar king. Who were those people? Those who had come together: Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi and Barid Shahi. All these Shahis, they came together to fight against the Vijayanagar king in the year 1565, and the place where the battle was fought, that was Talikot. And in this battle, the Vijayanagar king was defeated, and this was the end of Vijayanagar kingdom. Remember, in 1565, there was a battle at Talikot in between Vijayanagar king one side and Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi and Barid Shahi on the other side. There was a big battle, and in this battle Vijayanagar kingdom was defeated, and that was the end of Vijayanagar kingdom. Bahamani kingdom. While Muhammad bin Tughlaq was still ruling, some of the Sardars in the Deccan rose in rebellion against him. Already we have seen that in south, Vijayanagar and Bahamani, these two formidable kingdoms were established. The leader of the Sardars, Hassan Gangu, defeated the army of the Sultan of Delhi. Under Hassan Gangu, a new kingdom known as Bahamani kingdom came into existence in 1347 CE. Like Vijayanagar kings also, the other rule which was established, the other kingdom which was established, that was Bahamani kingdom. And the first king of Bahamani kingdom was Hassan Gangu, was the first king of Bahamani kingdom. A separate kingdom was established, and this Hassan Gangu made Gulbarga his capital. Presently this Gulbarga is in Karnataka, and he made his capital Gulbarga. He started ruling from Gulbarga. Mahmud Gawan. He was a very powerful wazir. He was the chief wazir of the Bahamani kingdom. A very important officer in was looking after the administration of Bahamani kingdom. Mahmud Gawan was the chief wazir of the Bahamani kingdom. With his able guidance, the Bahamani kings were ruling. He was very powerful. He was a good administrator. What is meant by good administrator? The one who was doing lot of good things for the people to make the people happy. Second, trying to extend the boundaries of the kingdom, trying to provide all the facilities to the people. So that's why he is called a good administrator. What was the contribution of Mahmud Gawan? Why he is remembered in history? Why he is remembered as a chief wazir? The reasons are he was a good administrator. Second, he strengthened the Bahamani kingdom. When he became the wazir of Bahamani kingdom, he started extending the boundaries of the kingdom, and he started making the kingdom very powerful. Other good things what he has done, that is, he started paying the soldiers in cash instead of land grants. Mahmud Gawan started paying the soldiers in cash. He started giving them directly salary. He started giving them money. Before that, what was there? The soldiers were given land grants. The soldiers as a salary. They were not getting salary, but the soldiers were given a piece of land which they have to cultivate and look after their family as well as. Also, if it is given to someone else, the revenue they have to collect from that particular land. So that's why the soldiers were concentrating more on the land. They were not serving faithfully because their whole attention was towards their land. And that's why when Mahmud Gawan realized this, he started paying the soldiers in cash, so that no land grants was given. The soldiers were not pay attention towards the land which was given to them. So that was the benefit. He brought discipline in the army. He was knowing that discipline is must, especially the discipline should be there in the army. And if the army is disciplined, surely there will be a result. And that's why he started bringing discipline in the army. He introduced many reforms in the land revenue system. The next reform what he has done, He brought land revenue system. Land revenue, the tax which is collected from the landowners, that is called land revenue. He brought many various reforms in that. He started changing the land revenue system so that people will also become happy. He opened a madrasa at Bidar for Arabic and Persian studies. Madrasa, that is a pathshala or school. For the study of Arabic and Persian, he started madrasa at Bidar. This also shows that he was a lover of education, and that's why he had started madrasa, to give education to the student. So remember the contribution of Mahmud Gawan. He was a good administrator. He strengthened the Bahmani kingdom. He started paying the soldiers in cash instead of land grants. He brought discipline in the army. He introduced many reforms in the land revenue system, and he opened madrasa at Bidar for Arabic and Persian studies. This was the contribution of Mahmud Gawan. After his death, factionism increased among the Bahmani Sardars. After the death of Mahmud Gawan, the soldiers or the Sardars of the Bahmani kingdom, they became restless. Each one wanted to rule separately. The conflict with the Vijayanagar kingdom had an adverse effect on the Bahmani kingdom. Always this Bahmani kingdom fought against the Vijayanagar kingdom, and that was having adverse effect. The provincial governors began to act more independently. Wherever this one in the various province, the governors were appointed. Governors means one of the person who was responsible for that area. Each governor started ruling independently. This led to the disintegration of the Bahmani kingdom into 5 small powers. After the death of Mahmud Gawan, Bahmani kingdom was divided in 5 small kingdoms. They were Imad Shahi of Warad, Barid Shahi of Bidar, Adil Shahi of Bijapur, Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar, and Qutub Shahi of Golconda. Bahmani kingdom was divided in 5 parts: Imad Shahi of Warad, Barid Shahi of Bidar, Adil Shahi of Bijapur, Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar, and Qutub Shahi of Golconda. In this way, Bahmani kingdom also disintegrated into 5 parts: Imad Shahi of Warad, Barid Shahi of Bidar, Adil Shahi of Bijapur, Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar, and Qutub Shahi of Golconda. And this was the end of Bahmani kingdom. So dear students, we have gone through this part. And tomorrow we will see the Mughal power. Thank you very much. God bless you.